I think it's really funny how this shirt already has a hole in one of the arms, because it really tells you about the quality of our engineers. For legal reasons, that's a joke though. What is up, folks? Today I'm back and better than ever in order to tell you about the UW-Madison Engineering School. Spoiler alert, I'm a biomedical engineer at UW-Madison, which you probably already know because that's the only personality trait I have. This video is chock full of the best information I could find, both online and in my memory, so watch till the end if you need answers. So we can start off with some general info right off the bat. The engineering school at UW is ranked very high amongst the nation's public schools. It's about 15th or 24th based off of different informational sites that I've found. There's about 5,000 undergrads out of the 33,000 that attend the university. There are 13 majors and 21 departments in the College of Engineering. This includes specific majors like chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, and also ranges to certificates that you can get, like there's some certificates for maybe industrial engineering or systems inspections, but you can find those on the engineering website. Now let's move past cool statistics and move into how engineering actually works here. You're obviously smart, so give yourself a pat on the back for getting a direct admit to the College of Engineering. However, the work doesn't stop there. In order to actually get into the major that you want in future years, you have to maintain a certain GPA. I'll put a little picture of the chart over here and link it down in the description below. This entire process is called progression. So for your freshman year, if you want to automatically hit progression, you have to hit certain benchmarks in your core GPA, which is your math and science classes, and your general overall GPA, which is all of your classes together. Now, if you don't automatically progress, there is a way to continue in the program through an application. First of all, please don't panic. Essentially, everyone who doesn't automatically progress, or I think it might just be everyone, gets an email about how to write a personal statement and apply through a program called Tide that is emailed to you and opens up in late April. This is a good place to document strenuous circumstances, maybe an illness, death, mental health issue, and it will let the faculty know why your GPA wasn't up to standard. And since not everyone hits automatic progression, there's still a chance that they will take you and consider you for progression if your GPA was close enough or if your reasons were legitimate. I'm not saying no ones are legitimate, but they just need to know why you didn't hit the standards that they have. In your personal statement, I would recommend that you don't complain about the issues, but rather focus on how you got past them and worked harder to improve your GPA for second semester. If your GPA has an upward trend in second semester, you're much more likely to be able to non-automatically progress. However, generally, you really want to pull yourself together and get the grades that you need the entire year, especially for the more competitive programs like biomedical engineering and chemical engineering are the two that I know that have higher GPA requirements than the rest. Making sure that you prioritize high credit classes that are in your math and science categories ensures that not only is your overall GPA high, but that your core GPA is up to standards as well. Another thing to remember is that you can retake one class and replace the new grade with the old grade. For example, if you didn't do really well in Gen Chem, like you got a D, you can retake that again, and if you get an A, it'll completely replace the old grade and that won't even show up on your transcript. This non-automatic progression process is something that you have to go through if you're outside the College of Engineering as well. There are ways to transfer in, but you have to compete with the already existing engineering class, which gets priority. I know I totally freaked out about this process during freshman year, like I'm still freaking out about it because of coronavirus, and they were nice enough to give us an extension, but I'm still retaking one of my classes just because I didn't like the class grade that I got recently, and so it's a very common thing, so don't put yourself down or freak out because you didn't get as high of a grade as you hoped. College is stressful for everyone, and it's definitely going to impact your grades even if you were an overachiever in high school. But if you do initially work hard and get the grade that you want, then you qualify for automatic progression, and that's great. In order to get those grades that you want to know what the major engineering buildings on campus are and some great study spots that I've found throughout my year. Obviously, the engineering hall, or E-hall, is a big one. During your freshman year, you'll probably only have 2 to 3 classes like Intro to Engineering or Statics in the big hall, 1800. But I really like to go there to study because it has a cafe, it has lots of bright windows, and it's generally a really open space with lots of different seating options, so you could sit there all day and get as much homework done as you need. Across the street is Went Commons. This houses the Makerspace and ULC, or Undergraduate Learning Center. In Went Commons, there's a ton of different places that you can study. There's rooms that you can book for study groups. There's obviously the Makerspace, which houses laser cutters, like a lot of 3D printers, a wood shop, and maybe even some metalworking tools, as well as a big open common space to study or take a break in. All of this can be used to work on projects as long as you have a permit, and you'll learn more about the permit process when you go through Intro to Engineering. A note is you can use this area for personal projects after you get your permit, and I really wanted to do this before we got sent home because I had a permit from Intro to Engineering. But if you have training in all of those machines, you can use whatever you want and pay just a material fee. And I think it's a really great idea for people who like to stay busy or are super creative and love to work on new projects. Overall, Went Commons is a super well-designed building, and if you're not going to spend time there for studying, you'll have a statics discussion in the Commons anyways, so you'll be there at one time or another. Another cool place that any machinist would love is the Team Lab. This has tons of woodworking, metalworking machines. Recently it got flooded, so I'm not sure how long it'll take for them to open. But once it does open, you can go in there and the staff will help you with any projects that you need, and you can always get certified on those machines as long as you have a permit. Obviously, the major studying spots are places like Memorial Library or the college library, where lots of people from many different majors come to spend their time, especially during test weeks. The libraries are open 24 hours a day during finals week, but other times they're open pretty late until midnight usually. On the Lakeshore side, they have Steenbach Library, which is also another great place to study in. If you like to have a nice modern space to work in with a lot of good lighting, you can go to Granger Business Library. This is a place that's really close to Celery. It's like maybe less than a block away. I think it's basically across the street if I can remember right. But anyone can go inside, and there's tons of places to study in. It kind of reminds me of an IKEA because of all like they have like a ton of plastic furniture that looks Swedish designed, but I don't know. You can always rent some study rooms there too if you have people that you want to work with and if you don't want to disturb anybody. This area is a beautiful library, and it also has a cafe, so if you get hungry, you got a place to eat. So in order to actually have things to study for, you need to know how to sign up for classes. Now this year, SOAR isn't going to be in person, so I know a lot of you are going to struggle with figuring out what classes you want to sign up for. Engineering has a lot of different options, and I know it can get pretty difficult when you want to figure out what's the best option for you. Typically, they give you these little 4-year flowcharts in person, but these can also be found online, and I found that they are very helpful. They have specific ones for your major, and I know for biomedical engineering, they have tracks for pre-med, non-pre-med, and a certificate in something else. As for advisors, they are helpful for very specific questions. So, for example, if you have a question about a specific class being part of your prerequisites, that would be the person that you would email. However, if you have general questions that because you're unsure of what to do next, or you have 2 options that you're weighing, they won't be very much help because they're ultimately just going to tell you to pick what you think would be best for you, or they would refer you to someone else. Now, I'm not saying that advisors are unhelpful, because I've definitely gotten some questions answered by the really helpful people there, but I just feel like if you do the research yourself, you're probably going to find better answers rather than actually having to schedule a meeting, go in, and then meet for like half an hour, ultimately for them to tell you that the decision is yours. So if you really want to know what you want to take for your engineering classes, my best advice is get that 4-year flowchart, print it out, cross out all of the classes that you've already taken with AP credits or transfer credits, and then go from there. Essentially, this will shift your program back a little bit, so some classes that you're supposed to take in sophomore year that aren't specific to engineering, your engineering major, you can shift over to your freshman year. Now, you can't take classes that you have to progress in order to take, like biomedical engineering design classes that you take in sophomore year. You won't be able to take those until you actually progress. So my recommendation is look for gen eds that are kind of later in your schedule if you have open gaps. And if you're considering multiple different majors or you're undecided, try to pick some classes that multiple different majors have to take, like statics or engineering statistics or physics. The list probably goes on a ton, but those would be the classes that I would recommend you take for your fall and spring semesters. But even though you're trying to pack your schedule, I would recommend keeping it to a manageable workload. If you take too many classes and you overwork yourself and your GPA goes down, it's really hard to claw yourself out of that rut. And you're trying to adjust to a new atmosphere in college, so that adds an additional layer of strain that I don't want anyone to feel like their anxiety is going up or they're having mental health issues just because they don't think they could do it. And some of the choices that I'm talking about consist of stuff like, for general chemistry, there's two options. You can take 103 and 104, which is a total of 2 semesters, but it goes slower than your other option, which is Chem 109. Now that's advanced general chemistry, and it essentially takes both semesters and squishes them into one. Instead of having a lab every other week, you'll have a lab every week. People say that taking AP Chemistry probably helps you out before you actually jump into Chem 109, but I find that if you really apply yourself and you do the readings and you do all the extra work, even if you haven't taken AP Chem, you could succeed in that class. I would say in general that no 18 credit semester is worth the mental strain. Sometimes it's impossible to avoid, but I would try to avoid it at all costs. School isn't everything, and college is about a lot more than that. My schedule for fall freshman year for biomedical engineering was Chem 109, Math 234, which is Calc 3, Comp Sci 200, which is the Java-based version, and Asian American Studies, which fulfilled my ethnic studies general credits. I feel like this is a super manageable load, and when I look back, it worked because I brought in a lot of AP credits and I was able to shift gen eds that I would typically take in my junior or senior year back to freshman year. Now, as an engineering major, you're probably really focused on your grades and your future, and you don't care as much about your mental health. And I'm here to tell you, please don't do that. If you want your grades to be the best that they can be, you also have to make sure that you're the best that you can be. Resources that could help you with this is UHS. Now, in my opinion, I think that everyone should have a therapist just so they have someone to talk to and they can improve on themselves as a person. Everyone can improve on themselves in some way, and as an engineering major, they can help you with time management skills, anxiety lowering strategies, as well as many other things. The main center is located on East Campus Mall, which is across the street from Gordon's. It's like right next to Walgreens and Patea. You'll figure out what that is when you actually get on campus, but it's upstairs on, I believe, the 6th or 7th floor, and all you have to do is sign up for a general counseling appointment first, and then they'll set up a phone call with a specific counselor based on your needs. Usually they get booked up pretty fast, so I would recommend going earlier in the year and signing up just to see if it's a right fit for you. If you really don't think you need it, then that's fine. You can give your spot to someone else. But I do recommend that everyone, especially if you're in engineering, which takes a toll on your mental health, you should have a therapist or someone to talk to. And best of all, it's covered by your tuition. UW has one of the best medical care for students in the country, so take advantage of that. There's no reason not to try to help yourself and help your mental health. So just go. It doesn't make you worse of a person, doesn't make you lame. You can help yourself so much more just by going. And if you don't want a personal appointment, there's also an engineering Let's Talk that occurs in somewhere I think maybe Went Commons every week, once or twice. This is just a general counseling session where you can just talk about what's stressing you out. Maybe you have exam anxiety and you want to talk about that the week before midterms. As I said before, the ULC is in Went Commons. There are two options that you can use here. There's drop-in tutoring and one-on-one tutoring. Usually there's specific groups like women and minorities I know can get one-on-one tutoring at the ULC, but if you don't qualify for those options, you can always go to drop-in tutoring, which is specific hours during the week, every day I think, especially for like chemistry and math classes or physics classes, where you can go in and talk to a tutor in a group setting. I know a ton of you overachievers are going to ask me for opinions on how to get research as early as possible. Now for engineering, research is a good extra option, but the course load is already so difficult that I'd say unless you're going into pre-med or a graduate program, research isn't really going to help you all that much. Now, I mean that in like the resume sense. Research can help you expand your horizons, it can help you form new connections, and in order to do that, I would say the best way is to email professors that you really like to hear at your lectures maybe, or that you see doing research that you would enjoy. Like I really love biomaterials, so I've emailed biomaterials professors and asked them to talk about their work, perhaps meet at a coffee shop and just have a conversation with them. You have to keep in mind though that they are really busy, and sometimes you're gonna have to follow up 2, 3, even 4 times in order to actually get a time and place to meet. If they don't respond after that, maybe you might want to talk to a different professor just because they might be too busy with research and classes. But you need to remember that people who work on research are really passionate about it, and so they're always willing to talk about it. Like think about it. If you had something that you spent your life and soul working on, obviously you're going to want to kind of talk to other people about it and get them to know about the research that you're doing. And sometimes labs will let freshmen work on research, but I know that since you don't have very much experience, this isn't a very likely thing that's going to happen. One of the best ways that you can get your foot in the door, however, is applying to be a lab assistant, where you're basically going to clean dishware, do some pipetting, maybe participate in some presentations. But this will be really good if you do it for certain labs that you actually want to be in, because then they know the kind of work you do, they know your work ethic, and you're much more likely to get a research position in the future. Additionally, there are engineering clubs that specialize in research that you can find at the activity fair. Keep an email out for research participants or positions available as well, because sometimes they'll email it out to the engineering school looking for help. Last but not least, even if you talk to a professor and you don't get a lab position, that doesn't mean you should just stop talking to them. I believe that that's kind of disrespectful, and you shouldn't use those awesome connections just so you can get further in your career. Professors are super kind, they're honest, like they're good people, and they're great to have in your social network even if it's not for research. If you stop contacting them after they don't give you what you want, I think that's a waste of a really great future connection. Never contact people just when you want something from them. As for how you can spend your time outside of research and school, there are a lot of engineering-related clubs at this school. If you're into competition, like if you did robotics in high school, I know a lot of people did. I did because I was a nerd. But there's teams such as Badger Loop, which is a nationally ranked team. There's Formula SAE, electric and gas. There's concrete canoes, there's robotics even. Additionally, there's also engineering honor societies. There's American societies for your major, like American Society of Biomedical Engineers, except replace it with whatever engineering you have. There's engineering student gov, there's Greek life engineering. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do for fun, and it'll help build up your resume. Anything engineering related or science related that you're super interested in, chances are there's a club for it. And if there's not, you can start one. Finally, some good general advice that I learned during my freshman year. Don't overload yourself with classes. This is a recurring theme in my video, and I only say it because I wish I hadn't done so much during my second semester. I really raised my grades in second semester, so I guess in hindsight, it worked for me, but 5 classes, which was 17 credits, seemed like a lot, and I don't think I would have gotten through it if I didn't have online classes, which were, in my opinion, a little easier. You're just gonna end up stressed and sad, which is not something you want when you're trying to adjust to a new life in freshman year. Alright, this next one's gonna sound a little weird, but don't study on your bed. I found that I get really tired after I study for a little bit on my bed. It's not the best surface for writing on, and I used to be super used to it in high school, actually. I feel like I'm a lot more productive when I'm not in the dorm, when I'm in a library or a kind of a public setting, because the atmosphere just helps me stay on track a lot better. And in consequence, that ended up to a lot of money spent on coffee and Chipotle, going to Collectivo and libraries until super late hours. Additionally, don't overdo it on testing out your new freedom. Partying seems like a lot of fun at first, but it's gonna wear out super quick. And you don't want that kind of phase of your life to have lasting effect on your grades. Grades are super important for progression, and so you want to make sure that you're having fun, but not too much fun. It leads to consequences everywhere, on your schoolwork, mental health, even physically. Oof. Make time for taking care of yourself. This is something that I'm saying again because people think that they don't need to spend time on yourself. And this leads to consequences not only on your GPA, but your mental health, your physical health, and in the future, it'll just lead to consequences down the road. If you want your grades to stay good, you have to focus on yourself first. In order to do this, I would take maybe one day out of my week to have dinner out with my friends at Chipotle, or I'd treat myself to a day where I don't have to do any homework. I understand that a lot of you may think that you have to study 24/7 in order to maintain a 4.0, but the reality is if you spend all your time studying and not enough socializing, not only is this going to have a bad effect on your GPA, but you're going to regret it down the road when you look back and all you did was study. That's why I can't stress joining clubs enough. You can find a lot of friends that have the same interests as you. You can relieve your stress by putting it into something creative or athletic. You can spend time on stuff that isn't studying and increase your social network. And since this is kind of in like a random order, the next tip that I have is get a Chegg subscription as soon as you hit actually any math class. I don't know how many hours I've saved checking my answers on Chegg and learning how to do them when I just can't figure it out, because it gets so frustrating when you spend 2 hours on a problem and there's just an online explanation for it. I believe that you shouldn't spend that much time on your homework just to get maybe like a 5 out of 10 because you finally couldn't figure out how to do it. Chegg was one of the best things that I've ever done for my school life, so make sure that you get a subscription if you can. Additionally, if you're trying to share it with your friends, make sure you're not logged in at the same time on multiple accounts, because Chegg will lock your account. As for textbooks, so far I have not needed a physical copy of any sort of textbook. I've barely looked at any math textbook, or honestly, the only time I looked at my textbook was for chemistry and sociology. If you buy the online versions, you're going to save a lot of money because the paper or textbook versions can cost upwards of $200, and then you'd have to sell it for maybe like $100 or $50, which I believe is just not worth it. Additionally, you're going to have to get online subscriptions to stuff like WebAssign and OwlV2, so getting it online in a bundle is a lot cheaper. Oh, I almost forgot about scholarships. So a lot of you will be applying for scholarships before you actually get into freshman year. This is done through the Wish Hub, which is the online scholarship hub that Wisconsin has for every student. There's a general application that you can fill out in order to get a scholarship. There's like some for diversity, there's some for financial aid, but make sure you try to not exploit, but you want to try to finesse the system as much as you can, because college is expensive and you don't want to be paying off debt late into your 20s when you have a job. If you haven't applied to the engineering school yet, know that there's no interview process and the engineering school is direct admit. And direct admit means that you're essentially qualified to take classes that are in the pre-engineering category. That was just like an additional tip because I'm sure that a lot of people that watch these videos haven't even applied yet, but this engineering school has been amazing so far, and I really love being a Badger engineer. So if you're considering going to UW-Madison for engineering, I really enjoy it, and I hope you go here too. If you're a girl, you can also join Women in Science and Engineering, or as I think it's called, WISE, which is a club / learning center, learning community that lives in Liz Waters, and it's just kind of a fun little place to meet other women engineers, because even though there's a lot of women in engineering at UW comparatively, it's still kind of weird to walk into a class and see that it's majority male. It's almost intimidating, but women can be engineers too, and you can do it. I'm like trying my best to actually think of other questions that I had before I went here, but I can't think of anything, so please leave some comments about anything you want to know specifically about the engineering school, and if there's enough of them, I'll make a part 2. I'm thinking about also making videos on the stats I had in high school when I applied to colleges, what colleges I applied to, and ultimately how I decided on UW-Madison. And that's all I can pack into this video for now. I don't want to make this too long because it gets really annoying to watch a video that's like upwards of half an hour. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe, you know, if you want. I hope you have a wonderful day, and if you're not, I'm sending love and good vibes your way. I'll see you next time.